शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. A warm welcome to one and all for today's 18th session of Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. Karma done with attachment or desires causes bondage. Body, mind, intellect, sense complex being interconnected, any bodily attachment and bondage to our senses causes ailments and loss of mental peace. Pursuit of Karma Yoga, desireless, selfless action, offering results to God, liberates us from bondage to our senses, gives us freedom from bodily ailments, and gives us that precious mental peace. Our life should not become a roga, resulting from actions related to sense pleasures. Rather, it should become a yoga. A man in a state of ignorance about the self is like the bud, but when the flower blooms, it sheds its fragrance all around. Likewise, the one who realizes divinity within becomes a source of light and strength. Friends, there is no greater quality in man than selfless love, which expresses itself in service to others. Hang on to these thoughts as our Param Vedanta teachers, led by Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir, shall explain verses 40 to 43 of chapter 3. Srimati Padma Chandrasekhar will chant today's verses at the end. I request all of you to stay and join in the chanting. Let us start with a recap of our previous session by Dr. Rekha Kumar. Dr. Rekha Kumar, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In the previous class and verses, Lord Krishna had said that one's innate swabhava, determined by gunas, cannot be controlled. Does that mean we have no free will at all? Are we condemned or enslaved by our own swabhavas? Can't we transform ourselves if we want to? Next slide, please. Lord Krishna answers that question in this verse. Yes, we can. We do have free will. Because of my swabhava, which I can't help, some thoughts, including adharmic vrittis, come to my mind, which I do not need to feel guilty about. But after that first thought, I do have free will and discrimination to control further thoughts, nip them in the bud, as it were, so that adharmic words are not spoken and adharmic actions committed as a result of the initial thoughts. Raga dvesha, likes and dislikes that arise from sense organs and sense objects, are always present in everybody. And these need to be handled in the beginning because they're like robbers or enemies, paripanti now, in my spiritual path. Swami Paramarthananda gives the example of the wind successfully putting out a feeble flame, but unable to put out a huge conflagration. In fact, the reverse happens and the wind actually helps the fire get even bigger. So in a nutshell, accept the first thought, which is born of our own swabhava, but use right discrimination and stop the thought buildup. Next slide, please. Lord Krishna continues to emphasize to Arjuna that he needs to perform actions in accordance with his swabhava because he wants him to fight the war. So a portmanteau word is coined, swadharma, which is a combination of swabhava plus dharma. Arjuna is a Kshatriya with prominent Rajoguna. And his swadharma is to fight when a dharmic war is on. Lord Krishna says, even dying while performing one's swadharma is better than doing paradharma, which would lead to chaos and confusion in society. With this verse, the main theme of chapter 3, Karma Yoga, concludes. In the next verse, we come to the problem of desire and its solution. Here, Arjuna asks a very valid, significant question. O Krishna, O Varshneya, our scriptures and our own discrimination show us what is dharma and what is adharma, and how to be a karma yogi. Despite knowing this, what unknown principle, kena prayuktaha, forces me, balad niyojitaha, to commit adharma? In other words, what makes a person violate dharma in spite of his desire to be noble? Is it an external force or is it an internal one? If it is internal, can I control it? In the next slide and verse, Lord Krishna begins to answer Arjuna's question, and this continues to the end of the chapter. He says, there is no external force. Everything is within. The enemy lies within. Ajnana or ignorance is the root cause of all problems, and it manifests as lack of discrimination at two levels, dharma, adharma, and atma, anatma. Ajnana presents itself as two strong forces, kama, desire, and krodha, anger. This verse gives us kama, krodha, swarupam. And here, a special emphasis on the word esha, it is used twice, and it means this. So this desire and this anger, which is born out of Rajoguna, is experienced universally by everybody, although the objects of desire may vary from person to person. The nature of kama is mahasana, it is gluttonous, because fulfilled kama leads to greed or lobha, which is never fulfilled completely, because it originates from a sense of lack or incompleteness, which is finite. Krodha is the reverse of the coin of kama. It is obstructed desire. It leads to violence and papam. And with kama and krodha, one can never be a karma yogi. Next slide, please. Lord Krishna gives us kama, krodha, karanam in the next verse. If kama is handled properly, there is no problem with krodha. So kama is dealt with meanly. Kama causes problems by clouding our discrimination or viveka shakti. Tena idam avritam. Tena is kama, idam is viveka shakti. Avritam means veiling or clouding. Three examples of similar veiling are given in this verse. The way smoke covers fire, dust covers the shining surface of a mirror, and the womb enshrouds the fetus within. These also symbolize three intensities of desire. Both Duryodhana and Ravana, they were learned people. They had knowledge of Shastra, but yet they suffered from clouding of discrimination due to kama. Next slide, please. In the next verse, Kama, Krodha, Parihara, Lord Krishna compares kama to fire. Analena cha, which only grows in size as more oblations are offered to it in Homa. It is insatiable. Desire is also analaha, and it clouds discrimination. Most importantly, discrimination is the most important faculty or wealth a student needs in his spiritual journey in Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. So, Lord Krishna's advice is to recognize the enemy within, remain in control, be alert, and on guard at all times. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Rekha, for a nice recap of the verses that we studied in the last class. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We are now concluding the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita in today's class. Gita is a moksha shastra. Our whole objective of studying the Bhagavad Gita is to attain Parama Purushartha or moksha. Moksha is possible only through spiritual wisdom or jnana. To get jnanam, we need a certain eligibility called jnana yogyata. For example, if a person wants to study medicine, you have to do a +2 with certain science subjects. Otherwise, you're not eligible to go into a medical course. So too, to get jnanam, we need a certain jnana yogyata or eligibility. And that is possible through years of karma yoga. That is why in this most wonderful chapter, Krishna has told us how something so mundane, something so ordinary that we do from the time we wake up till the time we sleep. We are always doing some work or the other in thought, word, and deed. This chapter has brought out very subtly, very systematically, how every action that we do in thought, word, and deed can be sublimated into a spiritual exercise, into a sadhana called a yoga. And that is what we have seen in all these classes. Towards the end in today's class, you will see one thing, and all this is based on Arjuna's question. Arjuna had a very pertinent and a very relevant question after Krishna elaborated everything about Karma Yoga. His question was, I know what is right, I know what is wrong. What is that force in me that makes me do wrong even though I know what is right? This question was very relevant because to get jnanam, you need jnana yogyata. To get jnana yogyata, you should do karma yoga. Karma yoga involves doing right action. And if I'm not able to do right action, and if I'm doing wrong action, that is not karma yoga. I will not get jnana yogyata. I will not get jnanam. Moksha becomes very distant. Swamiji has given us a 5-point formula. And in this portion, before the rest of the verses are spoken, I will tell something about Viveka, and the rest of it I will speak toward the end of the class. What is Viveka? Viveka is acquired through Karma Yoga. Viveka is of 3 types. The first is called Sat Asat Viveka. Vedanta says, what is Sat, what is existent, what is true is that which is there all the time. Vedanta emphasizes all the time means all 3 periods of time, waking, dream, and deep sleep. If there are certain things which disappear when I fall asleep, that comes under the domain of Asat. Vedanta also wants us to inquire from our own experiences. When you sleep, you realize that this whole world, including your body, has disappeared, and therefore this body does not come under the domain of Sat. Vedanta says, don't invest too much on that which disappears during your sleep. What remains during your sleep is when we wake up, we remember that I have slept well. We remember our dreams. That means there has been something in and through all these 3 states. And that is more important than my body, mind, or anything in the world. So the first investment that Vedanta tells you is to move from that which disappears, or asatoma, to satgamaya. The second investment that I need to make in my understanding of Viveka, what is real and what is unreal, or what is important and what is not important, is called Drik Drishya Viveka. Drik is the conscious principle in me, because of which I'm able to experience my body, and through my body I'm able to experience the whole world. The teaching is the seer, or the conscious principle, is of a higher order of reality than the seen, which is my body and the whole world. And therefore, if you're going to make a long-term investment, do less on this body, mind, and the world, because it is a perishable commodity. It is something temporary. It is of a lower order. Consciousness is one that lends existence, and therefore give more importance to the Drik, the seer, and not so much importance to this perishable body-mind complex and the world. And this is the second important Viveka that we need to do in and through our work of Karma Yoga in order to get Jnana Yogyata and to get Jnanam. The third Viveka is called Sukha Dukkha Viveka. What is Dukkha? Any form of limitations produces sorrow. Limitations in time. I have only this much time. I have only this much money. Limitation in resources. I have only this much space. Limitation in time, limitation in space, limitation in resources or objects. Whenever I experience limitlessness, I experience anantatvam, I experience ananda. The third Viveka is to shift from dukkha, we don't want, to sukha. In sukha also, there are 2 forms of ananda. One is called Vishayananda, which is a perishable ananda, which comes from the asat and from the drishyam. And from the sat and the drik come the atmananda, which is always there. Once a person discovers atmananda, then kama esha, krodha esha, all the wrong actions disappear. And that is why if I have to avoid wrong action, I will have to understand Viveka as the first step. With this background, let us listen to the classes for today. The opening verse 40 will be explained to us by Satvik Shetty. Over to you, Satvik.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. 3rd chapter, 40th verse. Indriyani mano buddhir asyadhisthanamuchyate hete vimohayatyeshaha jnanamavritya dehinam. The sense organs, the mind, and the intellect are said to be the base of the desire. Now, wielding the knowledge by these, this desire deludes the individual. Let me explain this verse in detail now. In the previous verse, Krishna has described karma, that is, desire, as an enemy. Now, it is an enemy because karma removes from us the Viveka Shakti, which is the power of discrimination. Discrimination between what is right and what is wrong, what is necessary and what is unnecessary. Now, as a spiritual seeker, there is a war that is going on between me and the enemy, karma. So, in this chapter, Krishna talks about how to win this war. Now, Krishna takes an example of the actual war itself. Next slide, please. When two countries fight against each other, they establish a military base around each other's territory. And the only way to win this war is to destroy the bases. Similarly, in order to destroy our internal enemy, which is karma, we need to destroy the basis that nourishes it. Now, what are these three bases? Number one, Indriyani, the sense organs. Number two, Manaha, the mind. And number three, Buddhi, the intellect. Right? Next slide, please. The first base, Indriyani. Now, it is through the five sense organs that the object gets introduced to me. Swamiji takes an example of a TV advertisement. Just like an advertisement on TV, we get introduced to the object. Similarly, through these five sense organs, we get introduced to the object. And more we use the sense organs, the more attached we get towards it. The next base is Manaha, the mind. Even though the advertisement on TV is just only for 1 minute, but the mind takes over it and starts dwelling over it. A mind creates a strong vasana. Mind says, it is nice, I want it, without it, I cannot live. Without it, I cannot live. But the truth is, without the object, we have been living throughout our life. Mind plays such good tricks that even the imaginary position of an object itself, it gives such a nice feeling that we cannot even imagine an imaginary loss of that object. So how does mind do that? By avritti. Next slide, please. Now, the third base is buddhi, the intellect. Buddhi contributes to the desire of the object by wrong judgment, by its delusive thinking and its indiscriminate attitude. And what is the wrong judgment of the intellect? That the external object will make me happy. But according to Vedanta, this is wrong, because Vedanta says the external world is neither a source of joy nor a source of sorrow. I alone am the source of joy, and I alone am the source of sorrow. Now, how can I myself be both the cause of joy and sorrow? For which Vedanta gives an example of a rope. Now, rope can be misinterpreted as a snake in the night or dark, or just a rope in daylight. It's all about how we interpret the rope. Similarly, Vedanta says, when I understand myself as I am, it is the source of ananda. When I don't understand myself as I am, it is the same I becomes the source of sorrow. Now, through these three bases, the desire overpowers the intelligent human being. Now, such an intelligent human being is completely deluded and shattered. And how does it delude an intelligent human being? By covering the power of discrimination. So until now, we have seen how karma attacks and what are the bases of karma. Going forward in the next verse, Krishna is going to deal with how you have to handle these three bases. Hari Om.
Thank you, Satvik, for a nice explanation of this verse, answering Arjuna's question, how is that my wisdom is deluded? And Krishna gives the answer that Kama has the ability to act on the sense organs, mind, and the buddhi, and therefore you need to be aware of these three areas. The next verse, verse 41, will be explained to us by Vinayakan. Over to you, Vinayakan.
Hari Om, Sri Gurubhyo Namah. So 41st verse goes like this. Tasmat tvamindriyanyadau niyamya bharatarshapha papmanam prajahihyenam jnana vijnana nasanam. So Lord Krishna says here, since karma can delude a person and lead only to more and more dependence, you have to handle the karma, you have to conquer the karma, is what he is trying to say in this sloka. So next verse, next slide, sir. So in the previous verse, we had seen that Lord Krishna explaining about the basis, that is about the nourishing factors of karma. As previous speaker explained, three: Indriyani, Mana and Buddhi. Indriyani, our own sense organs, they are introducing sense objects to the mind. And second is Mana, our own mind records the inputs that received through the sense organs. It creates strong vasana or samskara by that. It is like a relay race. Sense organs does the first job and hands over the baton to the mind. Mind takes care of the rest. So next is Buddhi, the intellect, the third source. Intellect contributes to the desires by its wrong judgment, by its delusive thinking, by its indiscriminate attitude. The wrong judgment is that external object will make my life happier and secure. But according to Vedanta, this is the worst judgment. All the external object and accomplishment having three limitations, that is dukkha misrijatam, mixed with sorrow. Second is atriptikaratvam, dissatisfaction, and third is bandhagatam, bondage or dependence. So next slide, sir. Next slide, sir. In this verse, Lord Krishna uses the expression jnana vijnana nasana. So if karma covers the discriminative power, it destroys both jnanam and vijnanam. Jnanam means the knowledge that I have an Atma. Vijnanam is the realization as I am the Atma. Jnanam is the first stage, that is awareness of Atma, Anatma, Viveka and the consciousness. Second stage is Vijnanam, shifting the identity to Atma. That is, I am the Atma using this body-mind complex as a temporary medium. Here, Lord Krishna says, Kama, the desire, overpowers both, expressed as Jnana Vijnana Nasanam. So, Kama is a big enemy. Now, how one can handle the Kama, desire? Lord Krishna suggests three methods as the first aid step, not the ultimate solution, just first aid. First one is Dhamma. Dhamma means the discipline of the sense organs. So, filtering what enters my mind through the sense organs. Unnecessary things should be avoided. Our mind is not a waste paper basket. So then Indriya Nigraha. Once things have entered in my mind, they are capable of generating thoughts. I begin to live in my internally projected world. That is, and these thoughts also I have to edit and monitor, because these thoughts alone gets converted into words and actions. Therefore, I takes care of my own thoughts. And unhealthy thoughts, I nip in the bud itself. Unhealthy thoughts is like an internal terrorist. This internal enemy can obstruct my spiritual pursuit, and therefore handling the thoughts, disciplining the thoughts is the second method, which we call sama or manonigraha. And third method is viveka. Viveka is proper thinking. Next slide, sir. Our problem is wrong thinking, that the external finite accomplishment will make us ever happy and secure. But I, as a finite being, by the acquisition or possession of or relation with any finite things, I can never become infinite. Finite plus finite is equal to finite only. Thus, Dhamma at sensory level, Sama at mental level, and Viveka at the intellectual level are the threefold disciplines to handle Kama. Lord Krishna says, next slide, sir. Tasmat tvamindriyanyadau niyama. Arjuna, start with the discipline of your own sense organs. And by way of that, papmanam prajahishyanam. Handle, master the problem of Kama. And that Kama is not only an obstacle to Karma Yoga, Jnana Vijnana Nasanam. It is an obstacle to Jnana Yoga also. It destroys both Jnanam and Vijnanam. So Arjuna, you handle the Kama properly. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vinayakan. In the last verse, we learned about the three bases: sense organs, the mind, and the intellect. And in this verse, Shri Krishna is saying, if you have to defeat the enemy which can cover the intellect, you have to strengthen all the three bases, the sense organs, the mind, and the intellect. We now will see a shift from first aid to final form of treatment, and that is through Atma Jnanam. Madhu, verse 42, please.
Gurubhyo Namaha. Indriyani paranyahur indriyabhyah param manaha manasastu para buddhir yo buddhe paratastu haha. Meaning, they declare the sense organs to be superior to the sense objects itself. The mind is superior to the intellect. The intellect is indeed superior to the mind. That which is superior to the intellect is indeed that self, Atma. As we heard from earlier speakers, and as in the earlier verses, the threefold disciplines are only the first aid. Then what is the ultimate solution? Atma Gnanameva. Self-knowledge alone is the ultimate solution. Why do we say so? What is the logic behind it? The logic is this: desire is an expression of a symptom of sense of incompleteness. Therefore, desire is an expression of apurnatvam, and it will go only by the discovery of purnatvam. Aham purnamasmi. When I am full and complete, I do not need anything. Whatever around is luxury. Swami Dayananda ji beautifully says, converting everything around to luxury is moksha, and that is possible only through Atma Gnanam. And therefore, in these two verses, 42 and coming up 43, Krishna talks about Atma Gnanam as the ultimate remedy for Kama and Krodha problem. And to talk about Atma Gnanam, Krishna has to define Atma. So, what is Atma? Krishna condenses in this verse and reveals the definition of Atma through a particular method called Arundhati Darshana Nyaya. Arundhati Darshana Nyaya means gradual revelation. As you would see in the next slide, in Arundhati Darshana, during the wedding, one has to see the Arundhati star. And this Arundhati star is extremely subtle. And therefore, a person cannot directly see. Therefore, first one has to show the grossest one, like that of moon. Then you say, you just see in that direction, there is a bright star. Then he shows the next one, so on and so forth. And thus, in few stages, finally he reveals Arundhati Nakshatra. This gradual revelation is Arundhati Darshana Nyaya, or it is also famous as Shaka Chandra Nyaya, where you show the tree first, then show the branch, then take the tip of the branch, then show the two twigs which are bifurcating, and between the two twigs, you ask the person to see that it is the star. Now, as you would see in the next chart, Vedanta uses the same method for revealing the Atma step by step. It is otherwise known as Panchakosha Viveka. Arundhati Darshana Nyaya is otherwise also called as Panchakosha Vivekaha. First, reveal the grossest, then the subtle, then so on and so forth. And here the word used is paraha in this verse, a very significant word. Literally, the word paraha means here is superior. Keeping this in mind, we will see the gradation. And as we move into our next chart, you would see Indriyani Paranyahu. The sense organs are superior ones compared to the sense objects itself. As I said earlier, why? Because the very existence of sense objects is proved by the sense organs alone. Then Lord Krishna continues, Indriyabhyah param manaha. Superior to the sense organs is the mind, because the sense organs can function as sense organs only when the mind is there to back. Krishna continues, Manasastu parabuddhi. Vijnanamaya kosha is superior to the manomaya kosha. Intellect is superior to the mind. Rational intellect is superior to the emotional mind. And what is superior to the intellect? He continues and he says, Yo buddhehe parasastu saha. That which is superior to even the intellect is saha, the atma. Saha means atma. It is the consciousness because of which I am aware of the very intellect, its knowledge and its ignorance. So when you say, I know, Swamiji beautifully says, I ask you the question, how do you know you know? Again, coming back to Dayananda Swamiji's beautiful saying, as seen in the next slide, when you take a picture, in that picture, so many people are there, and you conclude that there are 9 people in the picture, and for that program, at least 10 people must have gone, including the photographer himself. If I will ask you the question, camera is there or not? Camera is never seen in the picture, but camera's existence is never doubted. In the same analogy, Krishna says, I, the awareness, is never seen, but its existence can never be questioned. And that I, the awareness, which proves everything, but which does not require any proof. We will further be understanding about Atma as we study in the next verses. Harivo.
Thank you, Madhu, for a nice explanation of this verse. As you see, a transition in Krishna's approach to the problem. I know what is right, I know what is wrong, and yet I continue to do what is wrong, is because of Atma Ajnanam. And he tries to introduce us to Jnana Yoga by saying, superior to the sense organs is the mind, superior to the mind is the intellect, and superior to the intellect, he says, is Saha. Krishna plays a trick, according to Swamiji, by using the word Saha. And that's why commentators like Adi Shankara have interpreted Saha as Atma. Others have interpreted based on the previous verse as Kama. Ramanujacharya has interpreted it as Kama. Now, how do we justify that Saha means Atma? Because all the Upanishads have come from all the Gita has come from the Upanishads. So you will see a similar verse in Kathopanishad, in the first chapter, the third Valli, verse number 10, where the hierarchy between the sense organs, the mind, and the intellect comes. And there is another verse which tells the highest is Purusha and beyond Purusha is nothing. So he brings us to the Purusha or the Atma in this verse. And if you are interpreting the Gita based on the Upanishads, the word Saha now means Atma. We go to the final verse by Sukanya. Over to you, Sukanya.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. This is the final verse of Karma Yoga chapter. Evam buddhe param buddhva samstabhya atmana atmana jahi shatrum mahabaho kama rupam durasadam. O Arjuna, Mahabaho, conquer the enemy within you, which is desire, by knowing the self, which is beyond intellect, by studying the mind through the mind. There are 2 aspects here. Knowing the self, which is beyond the intellect, and conquering the enemy of desire within us. Krishna is telling Arjuna, O Mahabaho, the mighty one, attain Jnanam through Shravana and convert that Jnanam to Jnananishta through Samstabhya Atmana Atmana. This Jnananishtata will destroy all Ashuddha karmas. This is a transition verse from Karma Yoga to eligibility for Jnana Yoga. Next slide, sir. Only a purified mind can absorb knowledge. Karma Yoga is a means towards purifying the mind. It cannot directly give moksha, but it's a must for mental purification. All our actions are to be treated as sadhana. Only a purified mind is ready to absorb knowledge through Shravana and Manana. Even if Shravana and Manana are there, lack of Shama, Dharma, and Viveka may rob the person of his wisdom. Next slide, sir. Samstabhya Atmana Atma. Samstabhya means Nidhi Dhyasanam Kritva, converting knowledge to wisdom through reinforcement. Atma is beyond sense and mind perception. Understand Atma as Paraha, meaning Panchakosha Vilakshana. Though Arjuna was well versed in Dharma Shastra, his intellect was deluded due to Shoka and Moha. He was reluctant to follow his Swadharma as a Kshatriya, which would involve killing of his dear and near ones in the war. So he preferred choosing the Jnana path directly without going through the Karma Yoga. With this background, Krishna elaborated Karma Yoga exclusively for Chitta Shuddhi to gain eligibility for Gnana. Next slide, sir. There are commentaries and debates about Gnana Karma Samuchaya and Gnana Karma Mishrena Moksha. According to Kathopanishad, Karma and Gnana are diagonally opposite but are complementary for attaining moksha. It's a means and relationship, sadhana sadhya sambandha. Karma yoga is sadhana, Gnana yoga is sadhya. Jagadguru Sri Shankaracharya clears this confusion in his Bhashyam, Gnana Matrena Moksham. For clear understanding of this Vakya, Swami Paramarthananda has indicated a ladder of knowledge. Sakama karma is not a cause for liberation. Nishkama karma is an indirect cause for liberation. Gnana karma alone is the direct cause of liberation. Whoever follows karma yoga may get material benefits and purity of mind, but will not attain moksha unless Gnana yoga is practiced. Krishna is advising Arjuna to train the mind to drop the body-mind identification and own up the formless consciousness. This transformation from the lower I identification to the higher I is explained in the triangular binary format. Next slide, sir. Triangular format is where a seeker, initially not aware of his nature, identify himself as Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara as outside of him for prayers. I Ahankara is dominant here, and he performs actions as Karta and Bhokta. With the rise of knowledge and understanding of Advaita Vedanta, he gives less importance to body-mind and considers as Anatma. He now enters the binary format. The I Ahankara gets dropped and he becomes a Karta, Akarta, Abhokta. This transition is called Naishkarmya Siddhi, actionlessness, Jivan Mukta also. Coming to the second line of the verse, next slide, sir, about destroying Kama. Jahi Shatrum and Kamarupam Durasadam. Conquer the enemy. Kamarupam Ashuddham Durasadam. Desire is a powerful internal force. It's the root cause of all sorrows, which can overpower the free will. Ravana, the Asura king, was a devotee of Lord Shiva and had gained spiritual powers through penance, but was the target of unhealthy desire when he kidnapped Sita. Likewise, Duryodhana, in spite of his knowledge, violated dharma due to greed and was the cause of Mahabharata war. They were not able to control their desires. Through Shama, Dhamma, and Viveka, desire can be handled, but it's a relative solution. Ultimate solution is self-knowledge alone. Desires are two types, healthy and unhealthy desires. Healthy desires are very much necessary for Karma Yoga. Swami Paramarthananda calls them ABCDs, appropriate, balanced, clear desires. Converting the unhealthy and binding desires to healthy and non-binding desires is the sadhana required for Gnana Yogita. Finally, a powerful weapon as self-knowledge alone can destroy the internal enemy of desires. All our spiritual sadhanas are aimed at discovery of our true nature and claim Aham Brahmasmi. Krishna now glorifies Gnana Yoga in the next chapter with a strong message, Nahi Gnanena Sadrisham Pavitram Iha Vidyate. There is no greater wealth than spiritual knowledge. Hari Om, Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you, Sukanya, for a nice explanation of this verse, where Shri Krishna answering Arjuna's question on, I know what is right, I know what is wrong, I still do what is wrong, finally comes to that the only way to destroy the enemy within is to be able to have an understanding of your true self through Jnana Yoga by shifting from the triangular format to the binary format. Dr. Divakar will do a recap of the verses that we have studied in this class. Over to you, Dr. Divakar.
Thank you, sir. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Arjuna asks a very, very pertinent question related to the human behavior and psychology. The relevance of this question and its answer will continue to remain significant so long as the human race exists. His question is, despite knowing what is right and what is wrong, why do we continue to do the wrong things, even though unwilling? Api anichan, as though being forcibly persuaded to do wrong things. Balad niyojitaha. Shri Krishna's answer in the 7 verses from 3.37 to 3.43 is very systematic, comprehensive, and also very practical. It is as if the patient Arjuna goes to Dr. Krishna for help, and like any compassionate doctor, Krishna gives a diagnosis, causes for the problem and suffering, and offers step-by-step solutions as his prescription. Unlike the Lokika doctors, Paramatma Lord Krishna gives a solution for the permanent cure for all the human sufferings. In the verse 37, next slide, sir. Krishna gives the fundamental cause for all the comprehensive wrongdoings of the human beings. These wrongdoings are very, very compulsive. Kama esha, krodha esha, rajoguna samudbhavaha. It is kamaha, the desire, krodha, anger, which is born out of rajoguna. He says, these two are insatiable and very sinful and are the true enemies of this life, particularly for a sadhaka in the spiritual journey. Kama and krodha, in other words, raga and dvesha, are two sides of the same coin. Obstructed desire leads to anger. Therefore, if we handle kama, krodha will be automatically dealt with. So the diagnosis is made. The symptom of compulsive wrongdoing is because of the desire and the anger. The disease is kama and krodha. In the next slide, we will see the verses 38 and 39. Krishna says why kama is the biggest enemy and why we shouldn't ignore this disease. Our mind has emotional faculty and cognitive faculty. These two are interlinked. The very purpose of the cognitive or the intellectual faculty is to help us think and discriminate between options. Because of kama and extreme emotions, this discriminative power of the intellect gets covered, just as the smoke covers the fire, dust covering the mirror, or womb covering the fetus. Krishna compares desires to flame. More we feed into it, more bigger it gets, and makes us a slave of these desires. Therefore, Krishna calls this desire as a permanent enemy of the wise. Jnaninaha Nityavairina. In the verse 40, Krishna explains the mechanism that kama uses to engulf all of us. Kama operates through 3 interlinked bases called adhishthanam. The first base is the sense organs, indriyani. The second one is the mind, manaha. And the third one is the intellect, buddhihi. Pleasures or desires from the sense objects get into us through our sense organs. Sense organs are the primary gatekeepers of our sense pleasures, as they act as both perceivers as well as receivers. Of course, our previous experiences of that particular sense pleasure determines how quickly and how intensely our sense organs and mind cling on to these sense objects. The second base is manaha, the emotional faculty. It is only because we attach our emotions like happiness, joy, pride, ego, power, greed, etc. on these sense objects that we have compelling desire to acquire them. Once acquired, kama further breeds on these emotions, setting new targets to acquire. The third base is at the level of buddhi or intellect. All emotions are associated with thoughts and intellect. If the sense organs and emotions are already surrendered to the sense pleasure, it naturally forces the intellect to rationalize the decision to acquire the sense object. Like how a person consuming alcohol justifies taking it despite knowing its dangers. After engulfing all bases, kama thrives further, deluding the individual. Yeshaha vimohayati dehinam, by clouding the discriminating ability, avritya jnana. In the next slide, we will see what does the modern science say. Brain and mind continues to be the enigmatic organs for even the advanced science. With advances in science and technology, we do understand some bits of the neurobiology of pleasures, desires, and craving. Let me use the example of smoking to explain this. Certain areas of the brain called the pleasure and reward pathways get activated not only while the addicted person smokes a cigarette, but also just seeing someone else smoking. Pleasure neurochemicals such as dopamine gets released in these pathways during all behaviors associated with the smoking, like buying the cigarette, holding a cigarette, or even thinking about it. Interestingly, all these pleasures and behaviors gets registered in our brain, which further reinforces craving and addiction. The same mechanism governs every sense pleasure, be it a pizza, burgers, be it Netflix or PUBG or gaming, etc. As the same reward pathways and neurochemicals mediate this. The only difference is that some sense pleasures release dopamine much more abundantly and quickly, which is proportionate to the pleasure evoked. Of course, one's personality, past experiences, vasanas, morals, society, all of this influence on how much one gets attached and to what sense object. So desires create a liking for the sense object. Then I say I need it. Then it progresses to I must have it. And then later it progresses to I can't live without it. Such is the danger of the sense pleasures and the desire. In the verse 41, Krishna gives us the prescription, step-by-step solution to defeat this karma. This anti-karma treatment is given in 2 stages. The first stage is the important and mandatory first aid, targeting 3 bases used by the karma. The first target is sense pleasures. Adau indriyani niyamya. Control the sense organs with the damaha, that is the sense discipline. This sensory discipline, damaha, comes with constant reminding of oneself about the inherent flaws of the sense objects, which is they cause the bondage and unhappiness. The second target is at the mind level. This is through shamaha. Both dhamma and shama are not suppressing, but the techniques of conditioning our mind and sense organs through Vasana Yoga. The third target is at the intellectual level, the buddhi level, and the treatment is vivekaha, which is the ability to discriminate between the eternal permanent and the ephemeral impermanent. Karma is a product of dependence on the ephemeral impermanent world. Krishna again warns us, if the first aid is not taken, then karma can destroy one's gnanam and vijnanam. Gnanam is the knowledge that I am a combination of Atma and Anatma, whereas the vijnanam is abiding to the Atma while operating with the incidental Anatma. In the verse 42, Krishna borrows the wisdom from Kathopanishad and gives the nice foundation for the second stage of the anti-karma treatment, which is the permanent solution. This definitive solution is Atma Gnanam. Here, Krishna reveals Atma using Arundhati Darshana Nyaya, which is gradually shifting our focus from the grossest to the subtlest. We also have the Rathakalpana example from the Kathopanishad explaining the same. The word param in this word means superior. Sense organs are superior to sense objects. Manaha, the mind is superior to sense organs. Buddhi, the intellect is superior to manaha. And saha, the self, the atma is superior to buddhi. Therefore, everything relies on atma as it is the superior most. In the next slide, we see the last verse of the 3rd chapter. Krishna says, through the self-knowledge, Atma Gnanam, one can conquer the elusive enemy, which is in the form of karma. Evam buddhva param buddhe. Know the self, which is beyond intellect. Atma Gnanam, and remaining anchored to this knowledge using Nididhyasanam, one becomes Purnam, and that Gnani revels in Atmananda. Any other worldly source of happiness is inconsequential. Kama and therefore Krodha has no business with such a realized person, as he or she is the embodiment of Brahmananda. Understood I has no desires, whereas the misunderstood I becomes the victim of desires. With this, we complete the 3rd chapter. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namah.
Thank you, Dr. Devakar. That was an excellent recap of all the verses studied in today's class. Not only that, we have gone back to the relevant verses which we studied in the last class, where Arjuna asked a very pertinent question on Why is that? Even though I know what is wrong, there is a tendency for us to repeat these mistakes again and again. And after learning the intermediate solution, that working through the sense organs, mind, and the intellect, we come to the final solution of Atma Jnanam itself. Because this is such a common problem, Swamiji has given us a 5-point formula, which is a combination of Jnana Yoga. Viveka, as explained earlier, is of 3 types: Sat Asat Viveka, Direct Dirisha Viveka, Sukha Dukkha Viveka, which we will study in and through the entire Bhagavad Gita, and is the most important part, which helps us to understand our true nature. And as just now said by Dr. Divakar, an understood I is Atman Evatmana Tushta, is so complete, and therefore karma will not have an impact on that mind. If that is not there, then we need these 4 formulas. Sankalpa is a firm resolution. I will not repeat that mistake again. Pratipaksha Bhavana, go in the opposite direction. You don't go towards the source where you tend to make the same mistake. And we have the Vali example. Nothing like satsanga for a person who's committed. That like we have self-help groups, Alcoholic Anonymous, you go into a group of people who are committed to give up the same mistake again, who are committed to discover truth. So satsanga helps. And finally, it is prarthana, where every day you make this prayer that I will and seek the help of the Almighty to see that I don't go back to the same mistake again. We can go back to the 2nd chapter also, which talk of once I have understood my higher self, the Atma Tattva within me, Yukta Asita Matparaha, the chariot example which comes again and again in the Bhagavad Gita and also in the Kathopanishad. Now, if I have to make a right decision, I know I have the intellect. Can I put Sri Krishna on my driving seat, on the driver's seat, and therefore the decisions therefore will be very appropriate. To have Sri Krishna on the driver's seat, I have to have that vision that I have the Sri Krishna Tattva in me. And that comes through the study of Brahma Vidya, and where you get Param Drishtva, where you get a glimpse of the higher you through these verses of the Gita. Finally, I will conclude the 3rd chapter, which is a combination of Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, where Sri Krishna says, or we can infer this, that self-ignorance is the cause of all human problems. Self-knowledge is the way out. In Sanskrit, it will be Atma Ajnanam Samsara Karanam, Atma Jnanam Moksha Karanam, and Moksha gives us freedom from samsara. As you have just seen through Dr. Divakar's recap, how important it is to recap this very beautiful transformational 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. We decided that we will have an entire class where we will have 4 or 5 speakers will review important aspects of the 3rd chapter. So this session, till the next class, let us recap all the important verses of the 3rd chapter. And that is the topic for the next class that will be on the 9th. We will conclude today's class by chanting of these verses by Padma Chandrasekhar. Over to you, Padma.
Hari Om. Indriyani mano buddhihi asyadhishtana muchyate etair vimohayat yeshah jnanam avrutya dehinam tasmat tvamindriyanyadav niyamya bharatarshava papmanam prajahikyenam jnana vijnananashanam indriyani paranyahuhu indriyebhyah param manaha manasastu para buddhihi yor buddhe paratastu saha evam buddhe param bhutva samastabhyatmanam jahi shatrum mahabaho kamarupam durasadam. Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे कर्मयोगो नाम तृतीयोऽध्यायः। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम।
Our pranams and thanks to Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir and all the speakers for today's excellent explanations. We have learned today that the senses infatuate the mind misleads the intellect, and the intellect loses its discriminatory powers. We have to use the same body, mind, intellect, sense complex to uplift ourselves. Bring the senses under control, thereby slay the desires residing in them. A superior entity can control an inferior entity. The 5 knowledge-bearing senses are superior to gross matter body. Mind is superior to the senses. Intellect, with its ability to discriminate, is superior to the mind. Beyond all, beyond intellect, is the Brahman or Atma. Knowing Atma to be the highest, control the senses, conquer the sense, mind, intellect complex to decimate the enemy, the desires. Hearty thanks to Padmaji for your wonderful recitation of today's verses. Thank you, participants, for joining us in today's study. I request you to revise the notes on today's verses, which shall be shared on Telegram group. Remember to join us today again on Friday, 9th July at 6:45 p.m. for the next session, where we shall revise chapter 3 with presentations on summary of all verses. Do study the notes of chapter 3 totally to crystallize the teachings of Lord Krishna. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.